I'm Stephanie. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph as I stood in my now empty living room, watching my soon-to-be ex-husband, David, and his mother, Mrs. Thompson, pack their remaining belongings into boxes. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional thud of a box being closed and the muted sobs from Mrs. Thompson. This was the culmination of a long, arduous battle, and I had finally emerged victorious. It all started with what I thought was a perfect evening. David and I were at our favorite French bistro, a cozy place with soft lighting and a warm, inviting atmosphere. The clinking of our wine glasses against each other seemed like the final note of a beautiful symphony. We were celebrating my promotion to senior lead software engineer at my tech startup, a position I had worked tirelessly for over the past 8 years. The salary increase was substantial, but it was the recognition of my hard work and dedication that truly made my heart swell with pride. To my amazing wife, David said, his green eyes crinkling at the corners in that way that used to make my heart flutter. "I'm so proud of you, Stephanie. You've worked so hard for this." I beamed, taking a sip of the rich red wine. "Thanks, honey. It feels like a dream." All those late nights and impossible deadlines finally paid off. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. His hand felt warm and strong, and for a moment, I let myself believe that everything was perfect. We spent the rest of the evening talking about our future, about taking that long-awaited trip to Greece and maybe even starting a family. It was a picture-perfect moment, and I couldn't have been happier. Little did I know that this would be the last perfect evening we would ever have. 2 days later, I came home from my first day in my new role, brimming with energy and excitement. As I walked through the door, I immediately noticed the tense atmosphere in the house. David was pacing back and forth in the living room, his face pale and drawn. The air was thick with unease. "What's wrong?" I asked, dropping my laptop bag by the door. "Is it your mom?" It was always his mom. Mrs. Thompson was a woman of old-fashioned values, and she had never fully accepted me into the family. She was constantly making snide remarks about my career, my cooking, and my choice of clothes. For the 6 years David and I had been married, I had tried my best to please her, but it was never enough. David ran a hand through his hair, his expression strained. "She had a fall. She's okay, mostly just a sprained ankle and a scare. But Stephanie, we need to talk." My stomach tightened. I knew that tone. It was the tone he used when he had already made a decision and was just going through the motions of discussing it with me. We sat down on the couch, a careful distance between us. He explained that his mother couldn't live alone anymore. She was getting older and more forgetful, and he didn't want to put her in a nursing home. The only solution, he said, was for her to move in with us. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "David, we don't have the space. Our guest room is my home office, and we're not equipped to take care of her full-time. She needs professional help." He waved his hand dismissively, as if I was being unreasonable. "We can make it work. We'll convert the office back into a bedroom. It's the right thing to do, Stephanie. She's my mother." I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. "I have a demanding career, David. I can't take care of your mother while trying to manage a major project. It's just not possible." His face hardened, and the loving husband I knew vanished, replaced by a cold, determined stranger. "That's the other thing I wanted to talk about," he said, his voice dropping. "Your job." The dread that had been building in my stomach unfurled, spreading like ice through my veins. "What about my job?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He leaned forward, his expression intense. "You just got that big promotion, right? A nice little nest egg. My job pays the bills. You're always so stressed, working so many hours. Maybe this is a sign. Maybe you should quit your job and stay home to take care of my mother." The world seemed to stop spinning. I stared at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. He was asking me to give up my career, my passion, everything I had worked for, to take care of his mother. He saw me not as his partner, but as a solution to his problem. Every instinct in me wanted to lash out, to tell him what a selfish, insensitive man he was. But instead, a cold, calculating calm washed over me. I looked at him, a slow smile spreading across my face. It wasn't a happy smile, it was the smile of a predator about to strike. "You know what, honey?" I said, my voice as smooth as silk. "You might be right." His face lit up with relief. "Really? Oh, Stephanie, that's great. I knew you'd understand." I continued, the smile never leaving my lips. "I completely understand. But if I'm going to give up my financial independence and my entire career to take care of your mother, I'm going to need one thing from you first. A little insurance policy to make me feel secure." He nodded eagerly, like a puppy waiting for a treat. "Of course, babe. Anything." "What is it?" I leaned back into the couch, letting my smile soften just a fraction. "David, I'm giving up everything. My career, my salary, my retirement plan. I'm going to be completely dependent on you." "But what if something happens? What if you lose your job, or you decide you don't love me anymore? I need to know that I have a place to call home." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "I want you to sign the house over to me. Sole ownership. I want this home to be in my name and my name alone." The relief on his face vanished, replaced by a look of shock and disbelief. "The house? But why? It's our house. We're married." I pounced on his words. "Exactly. If what's yours is truly mine, then signing a piece of paper should be a formality. Unless you don't really believe that." He squirmed in his seat, his eyes darting around the room. "It seems extreme, Stephanie. It feels like you don't trust me." I stood up and walked to the window, my shoulders shaking slightly. "Trust you? David, I'm about to give up my entire life for you and your mother. I'm trusting you to take care of me. And all I'm asking for is a little security. If you can't even do that, then what does that say about our marriage?" I turned back to face him, my eyes wide and pleading. The guilt was written all over his face. He couldn't stand to be seen as the bad guy, the husband who was asking his wife to make a huge sacrifice without offering anything in return. "Okay," he said, his voice a defeated sigh. "Okay, you're right. If it will make you feel secure, we'll do it." The next morning, I wasted no time. I found a real estate lawyer who could handle the quit-claim deed transfer quickly. I explained to David that it was better to have everything settled before his mother moved in so we could focus on her. He agreed, distracted by phone calls from his mother, listing all the things she needed him to buy for her new room. For the next week, I went to work as usual, my colleagues congratulating me on my promotion. But behind the scenes, I was secretly planning my escape. I forwarded incriminating emails to my personal account and downloaded key project files to a secure hard drive. I was like a ghost in my own life, going through the motions while the real me was plotting my revenge. The day the lawyer called to say the deed was filed with the county clerk's office was the day David pulled up to the house with his mother in the passenger seat. I had my official letter of resignation dated for 2 weeks from now, sitting in my purse. I hadn't submitted it yet. My promise was that I wouldn't hand it in until the house was mine. And now it was. I stood on the porch, forcing a bright smile as David helped his mother out of the car. Mrs. Thompson was a small, frail woman, but her eyes were as sharp and critical as ever. She scanned the house, her lips pursed in disapproval. "Welcome home, Mrs. Thompson," I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "We're so happy to have you." She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on my work clothes. "You're still dressed for that office job, I see," she sniffed, ignoring my greeting. She then turned her attention to the house. "Well, this place needs some work. Those curtains in the living room are dreadful. They have to go. I felt my blood boil, but I forced myself to stay calm. Actually, Mrs. Thompson, those curtains are staying. I picked them out myself, and I think they add a touch of elegance to the room. David shot me an anxious look, a silent plea for me to go along with it. But I wasn't going to back down this time. David, we need to establish some ground rules. This is my home, and I expect to be treated with respect. Mrs. Thompson's eyes widened in shock. Your home? This is my son's house. I turned to David, my smile cold and calculating. Is it, David? Is this your house? He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. He knew exactly what I was asking. He had signed the papers, giving me full ownership of the house. It's an arrangement to make Stephanie feel secure, he stammered. Mrs. Thompson's face turned red with anger. You let her do this? You're giving away our home? I took a step forward, my voice firm. Rule number 1, this is my home, and you are a guest here. You will respect my decisions about the decor. Rule number 2, I am not a 24/7 nurse. I will have set hours to take care of you, and I will also have my own time. And rule number 3, you will speak to me with respect. No more backhanded compliments or snide remarks. Mrs. Thompson sputtered, her face turning a deep shade of red. You can't talk to me like this. I'm your mother-in-law. I looked her in the eye, my expression unwavering. I can, and I will. These are my terms. If you can't agree to them, then you'll have to find somewhere else to stay. David looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. He had thought he had everything under control, but he had underestimated me. He knew that if he tried to fight me, he would lose. Mom, please, he said, his voice pleading. Let's just try to make this work. Mrs. Thompson glared at him, then at me. Fine, she said, her voice tight. I'll abide by your rules. But this isn't over. The first week was a test of my patience. Mrs. Thompson communicated primarily through passive-aggressive gestures and snide remarks. She would knock over the salt shaker when I cooked, muttering about how my food was too salty. She would ask David if he was getting enough to eat, implying that I wasn't taking care of him. David, for his part, tried to pretend that everything was normal. He would come home from work, ask us how our days were, and then retreat to his study. He was a coward, too afraid to stand up to his mother or to me. But I wasn't going to let her get to me. On my last day of work, I had a long lunch with the CEO, presenting him with a proposal to work as an independent senior consultant on a project-by-project basis. He was impressed with my ideas and agreed to the terms. The day my official employment ended, I woke up with a sense of freedom I hadn't felt in years. I made a special breakfast for David and his mother, pancakes, bacon, and fresh fruit. They both looked surprised when they came to the table. What's all this? David asked, tentatively reaching for a pancake. A celebration, I announced cheerfully. It's my first day of freedom and my first official day as your mother's caregiver. I thought we should mark the occasion. Mrs. Thompson just sniffed and poked at a strawberry with her fork. Well, I hope you know what you're doing. Taking care of an old woman like me is not easy. I smiled sweetly at her. Don't worry, Mrs. Thompson. I've got it under control. In fact, I've arranged for a comprehensive geriatric health assessment for you this afternoon with Dr. Harris, one of the best specialists in the state. Mrs. Thompson's fork clattered onto her plate. A what? I don't need a special doctor. My Dr. Smith is perfectly fine. I explained that Dr. Harris specialized in elder care and that it was just a baseline assessment to make sure we were aware of all her needs. David looked panicked. I have a big presentation at 2. I can't reschedule it. I looked at him, my expression cold. Your mother's health is more important, David. You can reschedule your presentation. The appointment is at 1 o'clock. Don't be late. The appointment was tense. Dr. Harris subjected Mrs. Thompson to a battery of tests, cognitive, physical, and memory. She asked David and me questions separately. David downplayed his mother's problems, painting her as a frail but mostly capable woman. I, on the other hand, was brutally honest. I detailed her fall, her memory lapses, and her refusal to take her medication. At the end of the 2-hour appointment, Dr. Harris sat us all down in her office. Mrs. Thompson, she said, her tone serious. Your son and daughter-in-law have told me 2 very different stories about your capabilities, but the test results don't lie. You have significant mobility issues, early-stage dementia, and a heart condition. Based on my findings, you require 24/7 professional care. David started to protest, but Dr. Harris cut him off. Your wife is not a trained caregiver. Trying to take care of you herself would be a severe detriment to both her mental health and your physical well-being. I recommend a home health agency or an assisted living facility. We drove home in silence. David's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. He had been so sure that his plan would work, but now it had all fallen apart. When we got home, he followed me into the kitchen, his face a mask of fury. You did this on purpose. You exaggerated everything to the doctor. I looked at him, my expression calm. I told the truth, David. And the tests backed me up. Your plan was flawed from the start. It was never about what was best for your mother, it was about what was easiest for you. He stared at me, his eyes filled with anger and disbelief. So what now? Those agencies cost a fortune. I can't afford that. I walked over to the kitchen table and laid down a sheet of papers I had printed that morning. It was a business proposal. I've started my own consulting firm, I said, my voice proud. I'll be working from home, and my new hourly rate is quite substantial. And as the sole owner of this home, I've decided that your mother's living arrangement here is no longer tenable. I'm giving you both 30 days to vacate the premises. David's face went white. You can't do this. This is our home. I looked at him, my expression cold. No, David. This is my home. You signed it over to me, remember? You wanted me to feel secure, and now I do. And I'm not going to let you or your mother take advantage of me anymore. He stared at me, his mind racing. He knew that he had no choice. He had made a huge mistake, and now he was paying the price. Over the next 30 days, David and his mother moved out of the house like ghosts. They packed up their belongings in silence, their faces filled with shame and defeat. Mrs. Thompson, who had once been so full of pride and arrogance, was now a broken woman. After they left, I walked through the empty rooms, feeling a sense of peace and relief. The house felt like a new beginning, a place where I could build a life on my own terms. I converted the guest room back into a proper office, complete with a standing desk and a view of the garden. I took down the dark curtains in the master bedroom and let the sunlight stream in. I painted the living room a bright, cheerful color, a far cry from the dull, drab colors that Mrs. Thompson had preferred. A few weeks later, my divorce lawyer called. David had tried to fight for half the house, but the quit-claim deed was ironclad. He had signed away his rights freely and willingly, and there was nothing he could do. Faced with a mountain of legal fees he couldn't afford, he folded and agreed to all my terms. Life settled into a new, peaceful rhythm. I focused on my new business, and I surrounded myself with friends and family who supported me. I hosted wine nights with my girlfriends, and we laughed and talked late into the night. One evening about 6 months later, I was working late, finalizing a proposal for a new project. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Curiosity got the better of me, and I answered. Hello? A man's voice, hesitant and rough, came through the speaker. Stephanie, it's David. I almost hung up, but something made me stay on the line. What do you want, David? He took a deep breath. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I was so wrong. I took you for granted, and I didn't appreciate all that you did for me. I visited my mother at the assisted living facility, and she's happy. She's making new friends, and she's getting the care she needs. I realize now that I was being selfish, and I hope you can forgive me. I was silent for a moment, letting his words sink in. It was too late for apologies, but there was a part of me that wanted to believe that he was.